Someone asks, in response to voting, is there no value in working to abolish a system while participating to minimize the immediate damage it does at the same time? And then someone else asked, if we avoid voting because no candidate represents the left, how can we also avoid enabling the rise of the worst of the right?
No, I think Brother Avakian said it well when he said he's not against fighting for the right to vote, and under certain circumstances, voting might make a difference. He just doesn't want to trot out the illusion that somehow we can vote our way through fundamental social change. I think it was Emma Goldman who used to say, if you could vote, if voting would lead toward fundamental transformation, it would be illegal. So we're not against reform. We fight for reform. We're not seduced by the illusions of reform. That's all. Is that a characterization of what you were talking about?
Yeah, but I think there's another, yes, but I also think there's another point here, which is the logic of voting forgets one very basic fact, that in any kind of profound social change that's come about, it didn't come about by people playing by the rules and going along with the way things are. It went by people stepping outside of the way things are and refusing to go along with the rules. If you think about, for example, even some of the gains of the civil rights movement, the way things were in the South it wasn't just something people, white people didn't want, that black people could go to a restaurant. It was against the law.
That's right.
The law said that you had to have segregation. So if you were gonna change that, you couldn't say we have to abide by the law. You have to say this law is an unjust law. We have to step outside and oppose that. And if you think about any kind of basic change that's been brought about, it's always happened. See, people say, for example, now I got to call his name, Michael Eric Dyson. In the last presidential election said, well, if you don't vote, then you aren't in the game. The championship is the San Antonio Spurs and the Miami Heat. If you don't support one of those two teams, then you're not involved. You don't have a dog in the fight. The problem is, if the choices that they're giving us are the only way you can play the game, then that ought to tell us that we don't need to be playing this game. See, that's the first thing. And what we need to do, like people have always done whenever they've changed anything in any kind of fundamental way, is to step outside of the rules. Let's go back to right now, what's hanging in the air, the Michael Brown thing. How many times have you heard over and over again, well, we have to respect the process. We have to let the system play out. We have to let the system work. But this is the system working. The assassination of Michael Brown and so many others, thousands of others, that is the system working. And, look, how many times going back, say, 50, 60, 70 years, were black people lynched in the South? And thousands of times. And how many times was any white person ever convicted of murdering them in that way? Now you can come forward to the present time. People always say, well, the police have such a dangerous job. Look, what about all the police that are killed by black people? Well, what about them? First of all, you can't hardly find any. You go and take the statistics for the number of police that have been killed over the last 30 years and put it up against the number of black youth and brown youth that have been killed by the police, and one of them will be like this and the other one will be like that. And then here's the other thing. Here's the other thing. If somebody black or brown does kill somebody in the police, how long are they going to live? And if they live, how long is a grand jury going to take, if it even goes to the grand jury, to indict them for murder? Take the list of the number of police that have ever been indicted and tried, let alone convicted, for killing one of these youth, and put it up against the number of youth who've been indicted and convicted and either executed or sent to life in prison. for the few times that they have actually killed the police. So if this is the setup you're dealing with, and this goes back to elections, the problem with the elections is that the terms are always set by the powers that be, by the system itself, in a way that always makes the choices get worse and worse. So that what yesterday was something that you regarded as an outrage, tomorrow that becomes a compromise position, and the day after that it becomes the best thing you can hope for under this system and by voting. And this is what's wrong with the whole thing of voting. We have to go out and change the terms, not try to find the best we can within the terms.
I think this raises an issue which in some ways is the elephant in the room now, which is very much like the Sinclair Lewis novel. You said what? Oh, you can't hear? What? I can't hear. Oh, hit them where it hit. Well, the economic boycott that we called for in New York just 2 weeks ago, to end stop and frisk and to have the resignation of Bratton. Yeah, economic boycott, yes. But what I was talking about was this, though. Whoever raised their voice like that, it sound good. I think beyond that, we have to come to terms with the fact that there is a real possibility that America could go outright fascist. We got to come to terms with that. And what that means is that when you have politicians who are bought off by big money, bought off by big banks, bought off by big corporations, so that the government itself is completely subsumed under the power of Wall Street and big corporations. And those voices that are raised to try to bring critique to bear are either demonized, character assassination, or literal assassination. America is then very much on the road to fascism. And, well, no. With the very fact that we're having this dialogue here, it's in some sense a possibility of some people speaking their minds. I'm talking about when just to raise your very voice, my dear sister, means you shot down like a dog. We can call it soft fascism versus hard fascism. Okay. So that by raising voices, by still having possibility of social movements, even though it's penetrated by the FBI, that's soft fascism. Then you got thick fascism. But I don't want to play with the word fascism because many of us have had to deal with much more harder fascism where we couldn't raise our voices at all. You see? But I'm just saying that because when you look at the three dominant tendencies of neoliberal capitalism, which is financialized, privatized, and militarized, and the financializing with wealth at the top, you're privatizing public education, public life, public prisons across the board, and then you're militarizing, beginning with the schools and the airports, let alone the bombs in 890 military units around the world with a ship in every ocean. That is the American empire at the moment. At the moment. And to the degree to which the very possibilities of public spaces where certain voices, let alone certain movements, can still be enacted. Because believe me, under fascism, the Revolutionary Communist Party would not exist at all.
Well, we wouldn't be here, sitting here.
Well, we would be underground and in a serious way. Now, it might be the case that there's a whole lot of folks underground. We would on, but I mean, the point is that I'm just talking about that's one of the elephants in the room in regard to what the challenges are.
Well, I agree. And I think the point, once again, is there's only one way that's going to be prevented, and that's the same way that everything else we're talking about is going to happen. Is people rising up and refusing to go along with it and winning more and more people. Look, we have to go. When we talk about transforming the people, we're talking about, it's not some mystical process. We're talking about transforming the thinking of people, large numbers of people, how people understand the reality out here, what their values are based on that, how they see going about things in the world, what they think is important, how they see the possibility of living a different way, and how they see going about fighting for that. This is the key thing we have to do. We can't just have a good dialogue, and believe me, I'm enjoying it very much. And it's very important, and we need to do a lot more of this. You and me need to do more of this, and other people need to do more of this. We need to be, yes, our agreements, our disagreements, we need to be wrestling with them. Right. We need to find the unity as broadly as we can, and we need to keep talking about and arguing about our disagreements in a principled and lofty way. But at the same time, we can't just come to a thing and feel good for ourselves. This is not about us. This is not about the people here just unto ourselves.
That's right.
This is about what kind of world we're going to have and what we're really willing to do to actually fight to bring that world into being and to live in a way that's consistent with that and to bring into being a world that we can give to our children and their children that's much different and much better than this world. So we have to go out of here. That's why I said, and I was very serious. I'm not playing here. If they don't bring down an indictment against the murderer of Michael Brown, that is a test for all of us, and that is a test for this society and the people in it. What kind of society are we going to live in? What kind? It's not the only one. There are many tests, but it's one right in front of us right now.
That's right.
And if we're going to prevent, look, if the rulers of this country think that they have to throw off their democratic mask and go to what you're calling thick fascism, go to outright dictatorial rule without any pretense of allowing for the will of the people and rights and protests and so on. If they come to a consensus, maybe through a lot of struggle in their own ranks, but if they come to a consensus that that's what they need, they're going to move in that way, and nothing will stop them but us. And the millions and millions of people who are like us or who are not like us but need to be one to understand the world the way that we're coming to understand it.
No, that's real. That's real.